All right, we are live today. We are analyzing a deal in Detroit. Let me see if I can make sure that everything is working as intended. Looks like it is. Okay. So, one of our affordable housing and real estate investing community members reached out and said, "Hey, could you help me out with one of the properties that I'm interested in?" So, I decided to just do this as part of the live today to help him out. And let me just quickly take a look at this property. This is in Detroit. Looks like the home is in pretty good shape. The windows might look like they still need some work, but for the most part, not much renovations need to be happening inside. You just probably need a fridge and a range. Bathroom looks fine. This room looks fine. Was that 3 bedrooms? Hold on. Did it count as a bedroom? Let's see. Let's make sure. So this is the living room. This is 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. They're probably counting this as a 3rd bedroom. So sometimes you just got to be careful in case like there isn't another entrance or egress point, but looks like there's a window there. So I'm assuming they're counting this as a bedroom to make it 3 bedroom. But just in case, you want to be a little careful and make sure that it still meets the legal requirements for a bedroom. All right, let's look at the street view really quick. I just want to see how this street looks like. I don't love this house right here. That looks like it's like just completely torn down, really, really in bad shape. In Detroit, it's really street by street, so I don't love this neighborhood right away. It's not what I have been seeing from other better neighborhoods, but this street looks okay, but that makes me a little worried about that area. Let's see if I can get into Top Hap and just check the score here. The crime score. So if you go to neighborhood, you can kind of scroll down here and take a look at the crime score. There's the neighborhood, sorry. A little bit high. Usually we've been looking at crime scores right around like 110-ish. This is definitely above average, and that seems to be right up there with what we saw of the street across the home. So maybe that's why it has not been selling. It's been on Redfin for about 104 days now. But hey, let's at least underwrite the deal and let's see what's going on. So what do we do for every single time? We go to HUD FMR, and we have to look at the small area FMRs to get the fair market rents. Click here, click on FY 2024 FMR. You're going to go to Michigan. And then this property is in Wayne County. Let me just double check just in case. I don't really everything, but it is in Wayne County, as you can see right there. So what I like to do now is grab the FMR for 48234. At 48234, you're going to see that this is the rent for a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom. 1410 and 1520. 1410 and 1520 is the fair market rent. Okay, great. Let's go to our market rent. So if you go to affordablehousing.com and you go to the market rent estimator under for owner section, you're going to be able to get the, comes look low. Let's see. 3-bedroom. What we got? 1217. So slightly lower than what the fair market rent is. 1217. And you can see how that is for 25 units within a 0.52 mile radius. 0.52. Cool. Then we have 1209, 1209, 1204, and 1344. Okay. I'm just going to put in the 4-bedroom county in here just so I can kind of see like, hey, what happens if there is additional left for 4-bedroom properties? I don't really see that here. 1297 for 25 units within a 2.32 mile radius. And this is going to be 1319, 1366, and then this is going to be 1681. Okay. The only reason I did all this stuff is so that I can show my analysis whenever I show anybody or an investor How am I looking at the comps for the single family home? Okay, great. So let me put in the asking price now. So let's kind of back into here. Let's grab the photos over here on the left hand side. If you want to look at the full screen version, you can go to youtube.com/@Kent_HE. So this property is 92,500. Let's assume right now it's a 25% down payment. Whoops. 0.25. Okay. This is probably going to 8.5% interest rate. Let me zero that out because there isn't a second loan on this property. This is going to be equals to that minus that, and that's the amount that we're financing on this property. And then our property taxes, we're going to grab it from the bottom of the Redfin. So there's no way this is $2 for property taxes. That must be wrong. So $40 for homeowners insurance. Let's see. Let me look at the property that I looked at yesterday because I'm going to assume that if they're in the same county, they are going to be roughly the same property taxes as the property that I looked at yesterday. And let me try to go look up the property I looked at yesterday really quick because there's no way the property tax is $2. That seems really, really, really far-fetched. Let's see. What's the property called? One 16817 Santa Rosa Drive. Okay. So the property that we're looking at, 16187 Santa Rosa Drive. That was Detroit, Michigan. Let me pick up the Redfin estimate. The right number? 16817. There we go. And their property tax yesterday for this home was $95. Even though that's a slightly higher purchase price, I'm going to use $95 for now, just as a quick estimate. My rent right now, and I'm going to use $1,217 because we're going to compare the market rent from affordablehousing.com against the fair market rent. I'm going to start with $1,217 because usually there is something called a rent reasonableness test, which means that even though that a fair market rent determined by HUD is $1,410, the housing authority might say that, hey, the market rent is only $1,217. So we're not going to allow you to charge more than what the market determines to be a fair rent simply because it's a voucher holder. So kind of avoid some issues there. Towards $1,217, I'm going to use that number for now. We're setting aside 10% for maintenance. So we assume that every single month we're setting aside $121, assuming that water heater, roof, something needs to get replaced at some point down the road. 8% for property management. We got 3% for vacancy right now. And let's look at the renovation budget really quick. So let's go up here. The property looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm not sure if they did anything to the roof. The roof looks like it's great, in a great shape. Looks like they've been recently renovated. So I'm going to take out the roof. I'm assuming I'm going to keep $500 to, hello, Tina. And then I'm going to leave aside $500 to clean up the landscape every single month. For painting, I think the house actually looks pretty good, to be quite honest with you. It looks like it's recently painted, unless something has happened. So I'm going to zero out the paint. I'm going to zero out the flooring. Actually, there was carpet somewhere. Let me see. Yeah, there was carpet right here. So I might replace the carpeting up here. So I'm going to assume that was about 250 square feet for that little room to replace the flooring because I really don't want to keep carpet in there. We don't need to do anything with the bathrooms, but we want to make sure we put in a range hood, maybe a refrigerator in there, but everything else looks perfectly fine for this property. I'm not adding an extra bedroom. Windows. Is there anything for windows? That windows look like it was. Windows average size. Looks like there were 2 windows that were taped up. So I'm gonna assume that's about $450 each. So I'm just gonna put in $900 just in case. Obviously, you have a contractor goes by, it might be a little bit different. So I'm looking at 8.8K rehab just to be super safe. All right. So at 25% down, at $2,312 closing costs for 2.5%, and about $8,760 of renovation reserve, this gets me to roughly around a 10.28% cash and cash rate, 10.3. Okay. This cash flow is about $293. This was assuming a purchase price of $92,500, 25% down, boom. And then the gross rent was $1,217. Okay. Those are the numbers that we have right now. All right. So if the rent is now at $1,410, which is your best case scenario, what does that get you? At $1,410, you're going to cash flow about $445, and your cash and cash return is going to be 15.6. At 92.5, 445. This is 25% down, 8.5% interest rate. Okay. Whoops. 92.5. Sorry. So for me, if I'm trying to meet a 17% cash and cash return, I might lower the purchase price and see what I need to get there. So assuming it's still $1,217, what do I need to lower my purchase price to purchase this deal on a conventional basis and still get my 17% target return? So I can pay $72,500 if I'm giving 25% down at 8.5% interest rate, because this now equals to 17.1% cash and cash return. My cash was about $480 a month, and this is assumed $1,217. That's part of what I would offer on this property using conventional deal. Okay. Now, this is the interesting part. The Affordable Housing and REI community member said the owner would be open to seller financing. So what do we want to do first? We want to look at whether or not there is a underlying loan that we might be able to take over as a subject to deal, sub 2, which means that you're not assuming a deal, but you are taking over the payments on that deal. All right. Well, when we do that, let's kind of put in the address right here on PropStream to try to figure out whether or not there is underlying loan. So 118 Broome Street in Detroit, Michigan. Now, let's look at details. Usually, if there is an underlying loan, you can kind of see right here that there's a mortgage and transaction history section right here. If you click right here, usually if there is a debt, it will have the information for that debt right here, and it will show you what the underlying debt is. Just for example purposes, let me show you guys one that actually has one, because I feel like some people have asked me questions about that before. Let me look up the property that I was looking at yesterday, 1524 Vista Verde, because I was looking at a home yesterday in Southern California, and I saw that there was an underlying loan. So let me show you guys what it looks like. 1524 Vista Verde, and this is simply for, let's see, that comes up. Oh no, I don't know why there's an internal server error. 1524 Vista Verde. Okay, I don't know why that's coming up, but that's okay. We're just gonna do this another day, but I'll show you guys an example and upload it onto another website afterwards on the Facebook group. But so if there is no underlying loan, which is what we saw, well, what would make this a deal if we were to turn it into a seller financing deal? Now, the seller says they want at least $25,000 down for them to seller finance it to you. Okay, great. Well, if I turn this number into $25,000, boom. What do I need to get for interest rate to make it work? So $25,000 down. My asking price is still $92,500. $92,500. This now makes it a 10% return, but we want to make this, let's zero this out. So if the seller is willing to seller finance this deal, I'm kind of just shift it over so you guys can kind of see a little bit better. 2.5%, 3.5. Okay, 3.5. So this is the best we can do. If your criteria is 17%, you would say, well, Mr. Seller, if you really want $25,000 down, let me turn this into a number just to kind of keep things clean, because it's no longer a percentage. And the sellers want to finance it to you at 3.5% interest rate, and the purchase price is still $92,500, you would cash flow on this property $523, and your rent, assuming it's still $1,217, that's how much I would be willing to accept a deal from a seller if they really truly are stuck on $25,000 down. That's okay, Mr. Seller. If you're willing to give me the terms that can work for me, I have to be and you want $25,000 down, the best interest rate I can give you is 3.5% interest rate. Make sense? Now, if you want it to be a deal for yourself, and this member of the community said they only have $4,000 down, okay, well, what happens if you get a private money lender to pay for your deal? So what if you got $4,000 down? That's all you can afford, and now all of a sudden you say, well, I had to borrow $21,000 from somebody else as a private money lender to make this deal work it. So if you want to pay at least 10 or 12% on the private money loan, assuming it's a 30-year amortization, which is kind of rare, but you never know. And this now brings you down to a $244 cash flow, but you only took $4,000 down. You have $2,300 for closing costs and $8,700 for reserve. So you could still get a private money lender to finance your property almost up to 12%, because that still meets my personal criteria of 16.9, so 17%. So if there's a secondary loan, $92,500, one, I'm giving $4,000 down. The seller has to finance it at 3.5%, but then there's a second loan amount and second loan interest. Second loan interest is going to be at 12%, and then you'll have a secondary loan at $21,000. And this would still be a deal because you have a 17% return on your money, assuming a 12-17 rent. So hopefully that makes sense on how I approach the different scenarios of this deal. How would you go? Hey, Ayaz, if you're looking for a good property manager, for Detroit, I brought Stuart Hicks onto my podcast. He's a great Section 8 placement company. So check out my podcast on youtube.com/@Kent_HG. He's really good. And in Detroit, there are so many public housing agencies and departments that you really need to kind of know the lay of the land. And before I would ever buy anything in a city like Detroit, where the neighborhood and the safety and the crime is really varying street by street, you really want to make sure you have someone local that really knows the area and can watch over your home while you're renting, because you never know if someone's going to break into the home just because they saw this listing online. They might just break into the home and squat there, right? You never know what's going to happen to a vacant home in Detroit, so you got to make sure you have everything down. The whole point of today was just looking from a financial perspective, from math perspective. If I assumed 12-17 was going to be my rent, here are all the scenarios that will work for me. I can either offer $72,000, $72,500 down, purchase price with 25% down at 8.5% interest rate. That's the max price I can give to the seller to meet my return criteria. If the seller says, hey, I will seller finance it to you and I own it outright, but he wants 25%, $25,000 down, then I would only be willing to do that deal if he finances the rest of the balance at 3.5% interest to me. The other way I can make it work is, well, if I decide to cover the $25,000 with a private money lender and I only have $4,000 in my pocket, well, I have to go get a private money lender to fund me $21,000, assuming it's a 30-year amortization. You never know what your lender wants. But if I'm paying them 12% interest rate, and I can pay them up to 12%, but the seller still needs to finance the rest of the balance at 3.5%. in order for me to offer him the $92,500. So that's how it works from a math. Those are the three offers that I would go for. Again, this is not investment advice. This is based on my personal experience. I'm not soliciting any investments. I'm simply showing you guys the work that I do every single day. This is the non-exciting part of real estate, but that's how I determine the different scenarios that would make this deal a deal, quote unquote. Now, does this house, is it in a good area? I don't know. It's kind of a little sketchy. Again, if you looked at what I saw earlier, you saw this really like blown up home, like right across the street. It's not the best look. Usually you don't really want to see a house like that across the street. Now, could this home have been fixed up since it's been listed? Maybe. Could this home has been fixed up ever since the Google Maps car like drove by? For sure. But this is why you need local boots on the ground. And I have done the hard work to bring amazing people onto the podcast so that you guys can at least know where to start. So I'm nothing to sell you. I'm simply hoping that you guys will take advantage of what I'm doing every single day. By simply underwriting these deals every single day, you get more and more practice about what a deal looks like based on your own personal return criteria. And you can figure out what offers you can make typically how I closed on my first creative deal was I gave the seller 3 different options and I let them pick. That's how I did it. I never forced one offer on them. So this is what you guys can do to, one, raise capital. If you guys just copy the same exact properties that I'm looking at every single day, using the same spreadsheet and putting it onto your own YouTube channel, I'm very confident you guys will develop an expertise and also confidence to spot a deal when a deal does come across your plate so that you can show other investors when they ask you, how do you know this is a deal? Well, you can show them for the past 100 days, you have analyzed over 100 deals and you saw over 100 deals that were not deals before you saw this one. So hopefully this gives you guys a little bit more confidence, remove some of the fear from the process, and I hope you guys make a lot of money and really contribute to solving the affordable housing problem. So thank you so much for the time today, guys. I hope this was helpful. If this was helpful, please leave a comment or just let me know if this is helpful. If you guys ever want to support our podcast, please use the referral link to use Steadily for any of your insurance needs for a rental property. Obviously, I'm not an insurance professional, but I personally have gotten a few quotes from Steadily. There were 2 properties that I was going to save a lot of money. And then there was another property that I was going to pay more money. So I did not decide to go with them. So I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much for the time. Happy underwriting and have an amazing Tuesday. Talk to everybody soon.